Welcome to the Real Situation Podcast with Jason Campbell. I am thrilled to announce this week's guest, Miss Keturah Drake. Miss Keturah, we've long overdue on a conversation, so I'm so thrilled to have you here this morning for us to talk about all things Keturah.
I am so happy because this has been a long time coming. I don't know how many more on the spot podcasts we can not film, right? Because we talk like this all the time. It doesn't matter where I see you. I could see you in the line at a club. I could see you at the train station. Wherever I see you, I want to talk to you. So
And a little backstory between us, we haven't known each other very long. It feels like we have known each other for an incredible amount of time, but we haven't. But what I've been so taken by you. I've been taken by you because we see each other, we're connected through the vintage space.
yes.
And girl, your knowledge about all things fashion was evident from day one. And then we've had subsequent encounters. We're dealing with Chanel's, we're dealing with YSL's, and we're dealing with all the things.
Yeah.
I just have really appreciated your astute understanding of all things fashion, as I said, and then drilling down further, your role to me, you represent the modern age quintessential fashion executives from which, to be
Mhm.
perfectly honest, my dear, I don't have a face off any longer. I no longer know what that looks like. I know an influencer, I know celebrities and as they relate to fashion, but the fashion executive, the identity of fashion executive is a thing of the past. So I
Yeah.
see you as that.
Thank you. It's funny when you said it, I tried to rattle off in my brain, like, who do I see as that? And all I can think of are the editors in chief. But outside of that, the people that actually work with the editors or at the brands, I don't really feel like I have a grasp of anymore. So it's funny that you said that because I was like, oh, maybe I don't either. But that was always the goal growing up when I thought about who I wanted to be. I didn't even know this existed for me. But I wanted to be an executive, and I specifically wanted to be some type of creative exec. It wasn't even fashion because I didn't even know that role. I didn't know what a masthead was, anything. So this is new.
Well, I come from the era when I knew, fashion executives of Saks Fifth Avenue. I knew, art buyers at W Magazine,
Yeah.
and we're also talking people of color too who are in these
Right.
roles. There's been just so many roles that I dare say that have been obsoleted over in recent years, and so there's no longer that identity. But Katura, they're the I consider the fashion executive as like the brass tacks behind the scenes, like that
Mhm.
engine of the industry. And I'm like, people don't talk about them anymore. People don't nearly do not identify them at all. And
Right.
so, as I said, I believe that you are a bona fide executive, and that's what I
Mhm.
want to drill down on today in our conversation.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm like one part. Some people think I'm an influencer because you have to have a digital or social media presence now. But a lot of the work that happens behind the scenes, I don't think people see, or the work that's happened before I even got to this role. Like when people say, "Oh, it took this role, that role, and this role for me to even perform in the way that I perform now." So thank you.
Oh, no, 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 no. I see the journey and I definitely want to interrogate it. And you made a point there about, yeah, of course, the face of fashion executives today is different. And
Mhm.
the social fluency that you have, so you have so well covered,
Yeah.
is definitely a feature of the current identity. But
Thank you.
before we get ahead of ourselves, Katura, let me give the
Okay.
audience a bit of background on you.
Okay.
Okay, Ms. Keturah Drake is a New York-based fashion executive, writer, and director of client education and brand engagement at the brand Tibby. Her career has taken an unconventional path through nearly every corner
Mhm.
of the industry, beginning in advertising sales before moving into retail management. She later returned to school to earn her MFA in fashion, ultimately building a career in design, product development, and client facing education. That
Mhm.
uncommon journey has given her a rare perspective on fashion, not just how clothes are made, but how they are sold, worn, interpreted, and integrated into everyday life.
Yeah.
At Tibby, she sits at the intersection of design and consumer understanding, translating creative vision into practical knowledge for women navigating modern wardrobes and careers. In 2024, Drake launched her Substack, Low Key Important, a newsletter dedicated to style, fashion, and life. A wife, mother, educator, and lifelong student of fashion, Drake brings both professional expertise and personal honesty to her work. Whether writing about a runway collection, a season of change, or the challenge of finding your footing in an industry that rarely reveals its inner workings, she offers what she describes as quiet but steady takes on what matters. No pretending, just perspective. Girl.
My God, I feel like, honey, the flowers have been given. I will not wait another day. Oh my goodness. Thank you. The way, yeah, you have to read everything for me going forward.
This is the resume, my dear. This is the journey that you have been on, and I want to hear about it in your words from your mouth. Okay. Your career path into fashion wasn't linear, Couture. You started in advertising sales, moved into retail management, returned to school, and ultimately worked in the product development and client education as you are now. Looking back though, what was the through line through all of those roles that you played in your professional career?
The through line for me has been the ability to creatively articulate what someone else is trying to say and also myself, and to do it with the lens of empathy. I think I've always wanted to help other people. So there's a helper in me, there's a helper in a lot of us, but helping wasn't enough. Helping by doing what? By being in service to, or helping by guiding and sharing things that I've done, you know. I was raised kind of by my grandmother, and she was a helper and a half. And but I was creative and I didn't know how to meld those things. And I think that that's what I carry with me everywhere I go. And I know that sounds like deep and heavy, but I got chills because that's truly like what I'm carrying.
Now, did you have a vision of this whole fashion landscape? Like, was fashion the goal, or it was an accidental discovery?
It wasn't accidental, but I didn't know the path to get there. So when I was in school, I was at undergrad in Tuskegee, and I was making garments out of garbage, scented garbage bags. I made a whole gown because I was in the modeling troupe. And I didn't know that making something there, how that translated to getting a job. I was supposed to be a police officer, a fireman, a teacher, a government worker. Like those were the only options available to me by my family and by the school, right? I went to school for marketing to figure out how to make commercials. I didn't know what having a creative career looked like. But once I got out and I think I was working at Nordstrom, and someone said, you should go back and get a master's. And I was like, why would I need that? Like, unless I'm getting something else. And they said, you should get one in fashion. They have it at the school. And I applied twice. I didn't get in the first time. So it's like this, it's been like unintentional, but like these little bumps along the way. It's crazy. I didn't fall into it, but it wasn't very intentional. I just knew I wanted it, and people kind of guided me towards it.
But one of my observations about you is your exquisite personal style.
Mhm.
Has that always been like, have you been recognized all your life for having great taste, having good style, or this is a later life development?
So I feel that it's a later life, but my friends say that I dressed well in college. I didn't have much. I had a lot of hand-me-downs. My sisters were way older. So imagine somebody 40 giving a 14-year-old something to wear, honey. A shoulder pad and a pleated wool skirt, hated to see me coming because I looked like everybody's auntie. But the women in my life were such keen dressers. My dad was a tailor. His first wife owned a cleaning business. So everything about how I looked, even if it wasn't the highest quality, had to be pristine. It had to be ironed. You know, you can't go out looking disheveled. And figuring out I didn't have the money to do things, but I would be creative with how I styled myself always. I had the pocket calendars that your grandmother has, the little plastic one that says like maybe Jesus loves you or whatever. I would write in those little squares. You know what I'm talking about? That's why you laughing. In high school, I wrote in those little squares what I wore so I wouldn't repeat it because I cared about that. And I wasn't like the coolest kid until I got probably into college. I was cooler, but it was important.
But exactly to that point, yeah, it was important, and it was important from a very very early stage. So you're definitely definitely a fashion girly, and has been since the beginning. Because if that focus and that recording was there at such an early age, clearly, this
Yeah.
was an interest from a foundational interest in your life.
Yeah, you're right. I had to like dig into that. I used to draw Nike sneakers, and we said we were going to redesign them, which is crazy because that's what they do now. But we were always trying to recreate something in the backyard. So, yeah.
Now, with all of those career experiences now, how has this complete understanding of this industry? Because like yourself, I've had so many roles in this industry. I understand it from so many granular level. What has all these different roles taught you about how really the industry operates?
At the end of the day, the industry, if you can't market your product, you're nothing. It's really about how you speak to the product itself and how you speak to the consumer. If you don't know the customer, there's nothing that you can do to provide for her or him. So for instance, when you are telling me about a product, if you're showing me something that I'm not into, you haven't figured out like, okay, she probably likes this based on that, like my demographics, you're not going to be able to sell to me or understand me. So that's really important. What else? You have to ask me again because I forgot.
Well, well, what I find to be super, super interesting is specifically in your role at Tibby.
Yeah,
Speaking to that, you're
yeah,
really, really on the front lines with the clients.
yes,
In your how do you translate a designer's intent into practical guidance that helps women build wardrobes that works for their real lives? Because in many ways, that's exactly what you do. You have
yeah,
these trunk shows, and you have these master classes through your show on YouTube,
yeah.
sponsored by Tibby. I find that to be fascinating. Please educate the reader on, or educate the viewer rather, on how you go about this and how this is so different as an executive in this era.
It's different for me to be not bridging gaps, but really holding hands with so many different parts of a company, a creative company. For instance, as a designer, my counterpart had to be a merchandiser. So we had to balance out how do they want this? Can we do it? It was last year. Now I have to take into play every single part of this company. The wholesalers, what are the stores buying? What are somebody in San Francisco where there's a microclimate and she might work in tech? How is she dressing? How is she wearing this? So what happens is I hear what the designer says and how she's designing her collection. I meet with clients often, and when I meet with them later, I can teach them how to wear the clothing because I understand what they need for different lifestyles. So, an executive needs something different than a woman that's working from home or woman that's retired but used to be in corporate because maybe she's tired of wearing blazers and she's looking for something that's a little bit more relaxed but still refined. So, it's so many nuances that women are like, we're not a monolith like black people, women, men, we aren't. So it's like breaking that down into segments and really catering to that person, but in a compassionate way where I hear you. And so let me apply what I heard to the product and what your needs are.
Well, see, I find that fascinating. I again, executives of yesteryear weren't so on the front lines, weren't so client facing. Even in your titling, even in
Yeah,
your titling is an update to that executive role. But
yeah,
I find it fascinating that, as you said, you understand the nuances of whichever consumer pocket you're dealing with, and I think that's what makes a difference. I have experienced your influence through you have, for example, when you come shopping at my vintage events, and then you post something on your page. I see on any of your social, I see how responsive your audience is. And I've come to understand that there is a great deal of trust. When watching all your
yeah,
videos on YouTube, I see that there's a great deal of trust
yeah.
that you have with your audience, with your clients. You understand what they want, where they're going, where they're coming from, how they need to be updated, what makes sense for their real life. I find that to be very, very unique. And while I do not know Tibby so deeply,
Mhm.
One of the things that I've always heard about Tibby is that it's a brand that is a great solution for dressing for the professional life.
Right.
Women, and this is
Right.
a woman-centric brand. Tell me more about why women are so sort of committed to a brand like this and how you are a part of that commitment and that, that link.
So the first part of what you said, it's funny because I don't even post that on my work page. I post it on my personal and I still get the same engagement, right? There is a high level of trust that clients have with me. I think in the era of influence, they know that I'm not just going to sell them anything. That I'm not some people say, "You want a water? I got a water. You want a car? I got a car." Like I am going to talk about things that I know applies to the people that I surround myself around with, but also the women, just women in general. This will apply for you in San Francisco. The woman got it because she needed a tote like that. Like I can see what people need. For Tibby specifically, I've learned that the most underserved demographic is one of our most served and most revered, right? So I met you through a friend, and I think that you are an anomaly, right? So think about the woman that's within your age range that maybe has lived a really long and full life, and she's went from her college self to her young dating self in the city, and then her married self, and then her with children self, and she's still been the same woman throughout. I got chills because we've seen these women come to your stand, but
Yes.
no one sees her for who she is in totality. They only see her for what she is right now. And it's really disheartening. I've had that. And it's like, oh, well, you probably wouldn't, you don't know what I like. I'm a wide range of a person with a wide range of interests. So I think knowing that I see people from the journey, one of the questions I ask them is like, well, who were you in college? Who were you when you were 20? Because that gives me a taste of who you still are inside that maybe you forgot or you lost.
Oh wow, wow. I love that. I love that methodology. It goes really deep,
Yeah.
but you must have the space then and the time to engage with the community in this effort. How does that work?
So one of the things, what I do enjoy about the work that I do, no one has really been answering their DMs. This job came from in a COVID world, us having a conversation via DM that spanned into a job position that was created for me. And because of that openness, go ahead.
No, I was going to ask you, did you help design this course?
No, I cannot give credit to that because I think that it was the founder's openness to being open to receptive of people. But if you think about it, I've been in other companies where we had market research circle focus groups. So how is this really different? If you people talk to you, they will give you all the information and data you need to serve them. and
100%.
and but if they talk to you and you listen, that's the difference, right? Because so that's what the platform has given me. And being on Instagram, having people ask me questions, which might seem like a customer service related thing, but it's like, how does this fit? I told you, I look at people's shoes. I can tell what size you wear because I train myself to know the difference between sizes. I train myself to see a woman's waist and say she's probably a 27, but she might be a 6 at her hip. Because every time I engage with somebody, I log that as a data point. And my memory's not great, but for that stuff, it's top tier. And so then that spans into the new modern trunk show, as you called it, right? We do these stylist houses, and so at the house, people make an appointment in this huge mansion, and they get a room to themselves. They get to try on clothes in a beautiful environment that feels intimate. They get to be styled, right? That's one other thing. Buying clothes is one thing. Being styled is another, and also being told how to wear it and how it applies to your life is a whole different like realm.
Oh, that is so. I love the completeness of the offering. But Katura, is this what modern fashion brands is what's required of modern fashion brands, or it speaks specifically to what TB is doing and how this brand needs to respond to their customer needs?
No, I feel that this is something that's a little bit unprecedented in that way. I
Oh,
think the modern fashion brand needs this, but the everyman needs this. If you are selling kids' clothes from a boutique, there's no way you should be using every platform as a service to others and also information gathering. Hi, this my name is Jason. Like I'll put everybody on a live. I've seen the responses financially and the responses emotionally from people on engaging with the social media that they're viewing just for view's sake. It's a tool for education and information.
Wow, wow. Now, I'm fascinating by the community. But yes, your honesty, your vulnerability they're responding to for sure. But what's coalescing this community from your estimation?
I gotta be not careful, but because I still work here, but I find that people locked in during COVID at a time when they couldn't really do anything, so they were locked into it. But there was an authenticity and an interest for having a similar mindset about things, right? This whole coining the creative pragmatist, somebody that wants to dress creatively but also be pragmatic. How many people do we know that like they're like creative, and but you are creative, but honey, you're gonna definitely be in a walkable shoe. Now, would you be in a shoe that you can't walk in? Maybe in the evening, but you got to get where you're going because you got work to do, right? So it's like, but that's every human being. I might be sexy and I want to wear a heel, but my feet not built like they used to be. So that heel is not going to get me on the subway. So I want to look creative and I want to feel pragmatic in those things. I think that the community has been built out of meeting other women and seeing themselves, maybe they forgot who they are and they're remembering at the same time, or that they feel like they like interesting things, but they also want to show up in a way that's kind of nuanced and quiet, like, oh, there's a detail that nobody knows about. So they found like their tribe is like a modern woman's book club. The women, they're together on their own without even us leading them together at this point.
But I have to say, what, I didn't make the connection until I just heard what you said. But if I'm to make this connection in the vintage space, I feel that this vintage space is so on fire right now because it has taken the place of those retail spaces, the department stores that at one time women used to go and opine about,
Yes.
what they're wearing and what the other woman is buying and sort of egg
Yes.
each other on
Yes.
and have
Yes.
this whole culture of support.
Yes.
There's no longer those spaces, and what you're speaking to in many ways is very much a neo example of a space like very much a space like that. Women need community when it comes to style and fashion. There's a benefit to
Right.
that. There's a
Right.
tremendous
But they
benefit to
need
that.
their own thing, right? That commercial with the woman having her she shed is the funniest commercial I've ever seen because she's like, I'm in
Wait,
my
which
she
one is
shed.
that?
It's a commercial where, like, you know how they have a man shed or whatever? She had a she shed. It was a shed in her backyard, but she wanted a place that was only for her. When I had a short haircut in my 20s, I would go to the barber shop because I just like the vibe. Like, I love the braid shop because when I go in there, other women are beautifying themselves. And immediately I know we're there for the same purpose, right? So
Right.
so then we end up connecting, and then I like them. I meet people at your stand. They all like vintage. I like vintage. We're commenting. You should get that. Then I make a friend. It's necessary in these times.
In couture, literally every time you're in my stand, like there is some kind of exchange with the women that are there right now. Something, a rich exchange. Nothing, nothing throwaway.
Mm-mm.
A rich exchange about some style detail. It's
Yep.
really, 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 really powerful. And I dare say that is a missing ingredient. I would say that a lot of most brands are not looking on that community building level as a part of the commercial component of their brand.
Yeah, I don't think that they are either. I think that they think they're doing it when they have these in-store events, but when something feels like, hey, I want you guys to come out and shop, it's like people just want to be together and the vibes will come. So if you bring me out with other people and they happen to look like me or be interested in the same things, I'm gonna feel at home. And I definitely think that's untapped.
And I think the zeitgeist needs more of this. I think it needs more of this. And it speaks to the success and the culture that has been cultivated at a TV. I've been hearing about it for several years, I have to tell you, Couture. I've
Yeah,
been hearing about it for several years about this, as I said, a solution for professional women.
right.
Specifically as I've gotten that information from many stylists that shops the brand and has recommended it
Mhm.
to me. Okay, you've written about losing your love of fashion during your years in corporate design, the classic cobblers with no shoes problem. But what happened, and how did you eventually find your way back to the joy of getting dressed? And I want to underscore that joy.
Ooh.
I want to underscore that joy. Joy is a potent and a powerful word in my arsenal, in my world. And I know that you exude a positivity and an
Yeah.
optimism. You use your word, but I read of your journey. Tell me how you came back.
When the word joy almost made me tear up a bit because I can remember when there wasn't joy. So when we talk about aspiration for design, I imagine that it would be this fluffy position where I'd be like, I'm not wearing a beret, but I'd be like doing all the things they do on TV, honey. I'm an illustrator with a whole like, pen and pad, and I'm in a showroom, and it was not that. And in an era where you needed schooling to open the door for you, not an Instagram or whatever, I was making tech. It was just so unglamorous and it was so production oriented. So it became more of like, look at the collections to see what you can knock off because we got to make a version of it. And that was like, it rips your soul out, from like knowing
Mhm.
how things are made. I wanted the most expensive silks for my senior thesis because I was like, oh, but the lady is going to fall over her body. And so it was after freelancing for some people and feeling like I got to get out the grind of this. This doesn't feel good for me. And I started designing stuff on my own. I didn't even realize how expensive it is to design. I think I told you that I bought some fabric. I was like, oh, $5 a yard. And they were like, ma'am, but you got a minimum of 100. And after you pay them duties, it's going to be $23.99. And I was like, oh, well, maybe this dress does have to be priced at a higher price, So like it was preparedness that meets opportunity, but also a shift in COVID, a shift in my age, right? It's like this coming into oneself that happens as you mature. Um, I definitely think a little bit of was motherhood because I was like, wait, I'm back. I'm a woman. I had a whole, and you don't have to have a baby to feel this,
Mm.
but changes in life will do that to you. If it's grief, if it's a job transition, that transition I felt so empowered. And I was like, who am I? And I started to show up as my most authentic self because I felt good in my body. So I
Mm.
think that transition for me was the absence of constraint from a corporation, and also a corporation like these mass market brands. It's very like tight, I wanted
Right?
to be in luxury again, and I was like, oh, I got to climb my way to the top. Um, and I think it's also accepting of my body. I've had a journey. I've always been a curvy girl. I'm a tall
Mhm.
curvy girl. We stand and look eye to eye, right? Two tall glasses of chocolate milk, and and figuring out that there's clothing for everybody. So waiting to have the perfect size to dress was not an option because I'm going to show up and I want to express myself and I want you to see me as the way I want you to see me right now. It doesn't have to
Mm.
wait for later.
Now, would you consider your journey to be tumultuous? And did you have agency all the way through?
No, no agency whatsoever. No agency. And I'm sure somebody would dare to say like you had some agency. I don't think I had agency because I didn't know my worth. So if I knew my worth, I would have taken that agency, but I thought I was beholden to someone like, well, if I got to do this for them to see me as that. And I definitely feel like that's something I wish I got a little younger or earlier in my career.
Totally understand that. Well, let's speak about identity more broadly here. What role do you think clothing plays in identity today? Is it still primarily self-expression, or has it become something more complex? A tool for communication, belonging, confidence, navigating the world?
It is so complex, but also so simple. I study people, and there's an anthropologist that I like. She said I'm an anthropologist. I was like, girl, that's a big word, and I don't know how that applies to fashion. And she'll probably laugh, but I study people, and I'm like, what did that person that has that on? What did they want to convey today? And sometimes I don't think it's what they wanted to convey, it's what they wanted to feel, right? If I see you in like sweats and a tee and you left the house and you weren't going to the gym, it's likely you wanted to be comfortable and you wanted to the convenience of what you picked, but that you didn't land on what you wanted to exude. And so that's where the chaos kind of ensues because then people in the world treat you how you look because perception is reality, and then you don't feel good about that, and it's this cycle. So I definitely feel that using clothing to speak for you, to speak with you, is it's so empowering. It's been something that people look down on. Like, oh, if you're into clothes, you like so vain, or you like spend a lot of money, or you're into this. But if you're into style, how you show up, like that's lost. We talk about our parents and our family and our ancestors all the time. There were nuances to how they got dressed and what they cared about when they got dressed. They didn't just show up any kind of way. And if you want to show up any kind of way, there's a way to do that without just showing up any kind of way. Like whatever your flavor is, you can show up in the most like powerful version of that. I don't know if that sounds judgy or not.
Well, as you're expressing yourself, I'm wondering because I too speak, I do speak, the liner notes of someone's dressing choices, and for me, that's such a is a gift. I just understand it very much to the letter without actually having studying it. I see what you delivered, where the strength and the deficit and all of those sort of things. Was it this understanding? Was it a gift for you to be able to read the tea leaf in the way that you do? Was it a gift, or I mean, we spoke about the foundational things in your family, but like the way that you're able to sort of like translate what you see, it seems to be like quite intrinsic somehow.
It now feels like I've gotten my 10,000 hours in, like the book. So I feel like if I count everybody's shoe size, for like 3 train stops every Tuesday for 17 months, like I'm gonna know who wears a 7 and who wears a 6 and who wears a 10. So I feel that paying attention to other people has been something I always did. In my church, I would see how the women sat and when they crossed their legs, and I would try to do it. Or I thought I wanted to wear a church hat, honey. My whole goal was to have a church hat and a suit that matched. Thank God I have stepped out of my preacher's wife era and I never stepped into it. But I was always paying attention to things because I was wanting things that were outside of myself. I thought, well, this person's better, or look at what they have. Because I didn't have a lot. I had a lot of love, but I was always trying to like observe things. And so now it's observation and practice meets it. And it's kind of in here now.
Oh, love it, love that. Well, the confidence, the confidence is there, and I dare say the talent is so, my dear. Every time I see you, and in those videos, every one of those videos, you are serving. I'm like, yes, yes, and yes. And there's no uniform. There is no uniform. I see the daily creativity, and as a fashion person, I love, love, love to see it. Now, let's interrogate more of your writing. Your Substack, Low Key Important, began as a place to discuss style and fashion, but it has evolved as a place where you write about grief, motherhood, relationships, ambition, personal growth. What made you decide that those subjects belong alongside runway, reviews or runway notations and all the things?
Because of the data points that I have when I speak to clients, or clients that become friends, or friends that are talking about the nuances in their life. The amount of people that send me a picture and say, hey, I have to go to my father's funeral and I have to figure out what to wear. When I wanted to go back to school, a sidebar, I told my family, and I told someone, they were like, why would you go to school for fashion? That's silly. You need to go get an MBA. And I was like, everybody has on clothes. Not everybody has a cell phone. And it's true. Every person that's getting dressed for whatever things they're going through, they have to still show up. So grief, my body changed. I lost a friend last year and he had a beautiful Substack. He was the my mini Jason. He would have been a Jason in the future if he had lived long enough. And um we had these talks about fashion, how it really is so important to see beauty, to be beauty, and whatever it means. And I don't know, it's just motherhood too. The postpartum woman, I find her to be someone who is in deep change, but also in constraints of like comfort and the home. And she wants to just feel like I don't know, seen. I don't, just more than just a mother. And I think I've experienced that.
And how has motherhood changed your relationship with style, with presentation, with confidence, and all the things that a woman endures, having a child?
So for me, I went to the Pierre Moss show, the one that was at Madam CJ Walker's house. A
Yes.
month out, I had pumps under my dress, and I was like determined. I'm gonna show up for this. And I I remember feeling so good that I could get out and be seen as just that, like Keturah that's out. And when I see mothers, it's like this, not even postpartum. I'm thinking because it feels like a visceral feeling. But who you were before is still who you are after, just like an enriched version. And you're also caring for somebody else. So being able to pivot that back to a self-love of like just getting dressed is
Mm.
the goal. Like I would put lip gloss in my daughter's changing thing because I was forgetting to put my lips were cracked and ashy and I wasn't drinking water, so I had to put it near the baby just to remember. So imagine if that's what I had to remember, how hard it would be to get dressed for the day. But when I regulate myself and show up for myself, then I can also help someone who doesn't know how to do that. And that comes through how I present myself. My daughter is very into fashion now. She is only 5. But
Adorable.
she has a lot of opinions, and usually her opinions are right. When she says not that shoe, I go, all right. And then usually it's the one that hits. So, but a care for how she presents herself. You know, if something's dirty, she doesn't want to wear it. Um, so I don't know if I answered your question, but
Well, you did, and a part of that, is something I read out there. You said not sharing more of yourself eventually felt like a disservice to your readers. I thought that was so potent. I thought that was really so potent. But what changed your thinking about the boundary between the personal and the professional?
oh yeah. So working and being the face or one of the faces, many faces of a brand, I felt like I had to limit myself. And there's a part of me that likes being front facing, but I'm also a very shy person. But I can't feel like I'm authentically being myself if I'm not sharing these things. And when we share, that's spiritual to me. You and I have shared some moments about things that have happened in our lives, and the more we share, the more connected we feel. And the connection is not just about clothes ever. It's about the humanness of us all, no matter where we are, who we are, what we've been through. Um, and so it's just doing a disservice to not be myself alongside with who I am in my work environment. And I think that that is in total what being a modern fashion woman is, like a fashion executive, because people want to know who you really are. That's how they trust you, you know?
But sometimes I have to say I'm not a fashion executive, but I'm conflicted about how much because the audience wants so much intimate information from me. I
Yes.
know the engagement goes up. I know
Yes.
that I'm colorful. I know that all the things, and the more I give them, the more you have them engaged. But I also feel like, but do you deserve this part
Right.
of me? Do you,
It gets tricky. Like I do not know how I'm like the accidental influencer. I went from being I go have a private account, then I have a public account. I'm like, Lord, what do I show? And people might think I show a lot, but I don't show my partner. I don't show, certain things. And also it's like I'm not a clown. I'm not here for your performance, but what is my gift that I need to share? And I think when I center it back to like is this something that I can't let go of? Sometimes when I write about things, I feel like I have to put this out there and then I get a response that says, oh my God, I'm so happy you said this. So when I hold back sometimes, hearing people say, this really touched me or this made me feel seen reminds me that I can share in a way that's comfortable for me. And I can change that tomorrow if I want, right? So you can show up one way and then tomorrow say they don't get anything. But yeah,
100%. And as you said, you're getting the feedback that supports the content that you're putting out there. And while you're shy, my dear, you're made for this. You have the personality, you
thank you.
have the confidence, and it definitely communicates. But what I'm thinking about as you say this, you're like, and part of what we're doing here is profiling the modern fashion executive. Does that woman, do you feel like in most of these roles, that sharing a personal side is almost part and parcel now today in the role as an executive, like they're going to have to give up a bit more than may have had to in the past, or maybe as comfortable with giving up
Well,
sharing.
in the beginning of our conversation, you talked about how this role or this type of person was usually a little bit behind the scenes. And I find that if you feel like you have more to say than what the scenes allow for, I think that that's the only way to do it. But I don't think that that's necessary. Some people might not want that. Um, so when I speak, I'm not just selling a product, like I'm talking about myself and what my values are. And I'm not pushing on people. I think I'm in a season of sharing. I will say that because I've not always been a sharer. My personal Instagram was dry as it comes. Um, but I don't think it's necessary to show everything, but I do think in this era, you have to show your most authentic self, especially with AI and especially with things that are being very inauthentic and kind of crafted. You have to
Mm.
release a little bit to be like, this is really who I am and this is what makes me different. Because there's always somebody, there's a pot for every lid or a lid for every pot. So that person that's out there, that's your person, even if it's another exec that wants, a friend. People are on all these apps. They're on Bumble for friends. They're on this. They're looking for roommates. It's like the platforms are right here for us to use, but we use them one-sided.
That's a fair enough that's definitely a fair enough observation. Now, fashion has historically struggled with issues of access, advancement, representation, and all the things. Have you encountered your own version of the glass ceiling? And if so, what did that teach you about navigating the industry on your terms?
I have encountered that, and more so in design. In
Mm.
design, it's almost like academia. So you have an assistant, associate, a director, and if you're at a company, well, I was at companies where if those roles were filled, there was no room for advancement until those roles were empty. I've worked at some garmental places. If I'm answering to the owner, there's nowhere to go but where I am, or to do more work for that person or even a founder. Um, so I have encountered a lot of that. And I find this is the first time in my career where my expertise and my skills and my experience kind of have combined to make a untraditional role happen. I
Mm.
think that everything does have like limits, but I think it's not limited. I think we have more power than we realize. Like for instance, if someone right now came to me for mentorship and said they're not allowing me to do this and I don't have a pipeline to this thing, I would tell them to get on social media and create it. Or I would tell them to like that still exists. This is a tool that you can use to create a pipeline for yourself outside of that.
Wow. Well, and you mentioned untraditional role. One of the things that my younger audience inquires about is avoiding that 9 to 5 trap. It within that untraditional role is in terms of when you go to the office and in terms of like the work schedule. Is that also non-traditional?
So my role feels very traditional. I think the untraditional part is right now I'm in our podcasting studio, right? So we have a studio that where we film our shows and our podcast. So that feels like I have a space that's not the office.
Okay.
My daughter is in school. I was thinking, I was like, man, she's in a 9 to 5. And so people want untraditional, but it starts so young, right? It's like there's some good there, but you have to find a way around it. I'm in the office 4 days a week. I used to be three. I work from home one of them, but I love coming into the city. So the difference for me is when I'm in that space, I have the ability to affect change. I have the ability to hear conversations I don't normally hear. I'm not left out of a conversation or hearing it at the end. For interns that are with me now, I don't care if they're not emptying the trash, but whatever they're doing, I expect them to listen, to be fed and paid with their ears. And I think that that's something that I feel like might not be valued in the same way because working in a silo or living in a silo isn't really always the best things. Now, mind you, could I get more done if I didn't commute in? Yes, but I think there's a balance of both that's necessary because that's why we're also functioning the way we are because we're not really socializing the way we used to.
Mm.
And so having these siloed conversations, I could talk to you on Zoom and have on a shirt right now and no pants. I do have on pants, but me having to show up and pull myself together, right? Me showing and having to have all these touch points to figure out how to function from A to Z. I before I even get to work, I've already worked and worked. So I find untraditional roles to be how an employer or how you think about the skills you bring and how you apply them versus
Hmm.
the time framing. I see a lot of jobs out there that are, you can work from home, it's fully remote, but that's not enough to satisfy whatever you're trying to create. Especially if you're creative, you need to see people, you need to like know the changes and the nuances and what's happening. Um, yeah, I feel different from coming somewhere from Metro North into Harlem as I do in Brooklyn, as I do in Soho, as I do in, the Upper East Side. So as a New Yorker, we have that, but maybe somebody that lives, in Minnesota, maybe it's different for them. Um,
Right. So the perceived freedom of working remotely doesn't always trump culture doesn't always trump engagement in the office space. It doesn't, as you said, operating in a silo, there's benefits to that, but that they're not always. You appreciate the cultural exchanges in an office environment. You feel that you're learning and you're engaging with your professional colleagues.
Yes, but don't get me wrong too. I'm not Miss Anti work from home because I'm all for it for the people that need that and their industries that require it. I have like comrades, I say, and they're like, I could not go into work today. I don't want to be in the office. I like working from home, and they're their most productive selves. I call one of my friends. I was like, you better get your hack on because she just want to be, but for her that works. For me, at this stage in my life and my career, is if I want to transcend generations or be able to work intergenerationally, which is a big thing too. If you're a woman over 40 or at 40, you got to keep your foot in like both. Like I got to keep my ear to the street. I also have to, so you have to know how to engage with people. And I don't think that if you're transitioning roles, or if you've been in the industry for a long time, you have to keep your hand on the pulse of it.
100%. Now, when you look back on your career and at the women you've helped along the way, where do you find the greatest joy in the work today? Is it with the clothes themselves, or is it in the transformation and confidence those clothes unlock?
It's not in the clothes at all. I think that clothes are just a vehicle for it. It's 100% the transformation, but not even transformation shows this long journey. It's like the touch points. Like every conversation feels powerful for me when someone feels seen, heard, when they feel like they can show up better and like maybe they didn't have the tools to express themselves, who they are visually. Um, that is the unlock for so many people. That's why all these makeover shows work so well. We're locked in. That's a money grabber for every Bravo TV, franchise that they've had, because people like to feel better and like, well, I couldn't have done that by myself. You've done it for me when you told me to try something that I wasn't going to try and I put it on. I'm like, wait a minute. And you can feel the energy shift. And I've done good today. I got her something that she is going to appreciate, but also that's going to make her show up in that office in a whole new way. Um,
Exactly that. And that is a powerful point of impact in someone's life. And that's one of the great things I enjoy about what I do. I always say having the right item meet the right person and what that does to that person is really tremendous. It's not about it's not about the item ultimately. It's about how that person feels at the end of that experience.
I know you're here to talk about me, but I just want to say it starts from the time you find it and you know that it's going to be a good piece for somebody, and you take it and give it a home and say, okay, I have a plan for this. I know the type of client that's going to want this. Like and you're also bringing us along with you on your travels. I met you in Paris. I'm not a world traveler. That probably been my second time in Paris. And you were like, "Oh yes, because I've been here and I'm going here." But when you go, you bring a little bit of yourself back and then you give it out again. So these are gifts. We want to make them like they're all like capitalist commerce, but it's like at the end of the day, if you had a lot of money, you still do it because there's a passion here. And I feel the same.
Well, I have been thrilled to experience you. As I said, the genesis of this conversation was really from seeing you, experiencing you at my events primarily, and how your engagement with the women around. And I mean, literally in the space of like 5 minutes, you're running to work, and you have such a strong, potent exchange with a woman, something that like really can affect her life in a short a time. And I know how powerful that is. I also do that to some extent, and so I've witnessed you, and now having the understanding of your role and your executive presence, that's why I wanted to have this exchange with you, and I was
Mhm.
not disappointed.
Oh, I'm so happy. I'm so, so happy. I just love being at your it like makes my day. I'm also like, oh Lord, we're gonna spend this money. But to start my day and run into you, it like lights me up inside. And that's what you do for people. Like talking to you feels like a warm, like, I don't know, iced tea on a porch on a southern, day. It feels so good. And so
Well,
thank
girl,
you.
I think I would say that we both bring our best selves. When we put ourselves out there, we try to to bring our best selves to the equation. I always say why would I do anything less? No one needs to, experience my whatever I'm going through if it's not positive. No, I just sprinkle a little fairy dust and keep it moving. And you do
No,
likewise.
I don't know how to mind my own business. That's the problem, but it's a good thing.
Keturah, I so enjoyed this conversation. It was so illuminating, and I know for this industry that's in such a place, that in such tumult, a storyline like this, I just think is clear, it's valuable, and it should be leaned into. There's an understanding that needs to take place here based on the service that you provide and the
Thank
role
you.
that you sit in. So
Thank you.
thank you very much for joining us today. I greatly appreciate your time, and we have more things to talk about for sure.
Yes, we do. Thank you for having me.